Good morning, ladies. Are you excited? All right. I am so excited to be your host today, and thank y'all so much for coming. I am Councilwoman Devine. I am an at-large council member and currently serving as Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Columbia, and I am so honored that you all took some time out of your busy schedules to be here for our Women's Summit. You're going to hear a lot from me in a few minutes, so I'm going to end my comments, but I will tell you one of the joys that I have today, next to being around all of you beautiful, fabulous ladies, is to be able to introduce for a brief welcome my friend and our mayor. When I asked him to come give us a welcome, I told him that he actually got the privilege of being the only male invited to be here with us today, but I told him he couldn't stay. But I wanted you all to just kind of hear from our leader about the vision. You'll hear a lot from me about the vision, but I wanted him to be able to come and welcome you here today from the mayor's office. Our mayor really needs no introduction. Most people know him not just here in Columbia and South Carolina, but nationally. I will tell you that I'm a member of a lot of national organizations, especially Women in Politics, and I will tell you that in the fall I went to Arizona, and I was networking, and when I said I was from Columbia, South Carolina, people were like, oh, you know Steve Benjamin. And so I said, yes, I know Steve Benjamin. So so I couldn't go anywhere without people knowing who our mayor is, which I joke about it, but it really is a positive thing because he is doing some great things for the city of Columbia and really helping elevate our national profile with all of the leadership things that he is doing. He's now incoming president to the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which will certainly be a benefit to us here in the city, and he is also somebody that we can always go to. And then when I say, I tell people that I'm currently the only female on city council, and so I'm a lot of times the only female voice per se. However, I will say that his voice is impacted a lot because he has a very strong, dynamic wife, and he is the dad of two beautiful little girls. So he also understands a lot about the importance of women and always wants to make sure that our voices are heard at the city. So without further ado, I will introduce and help me welcome Mayor Steve Benjamin.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I wish I could say she was as artful in her invitation as she just explained to you all. She said, come and do an introduction and leave. So that's all right. It's a pleasure to be here with so many friends, and I've had a chance to meet a few new friends here this morning as well. And I'm excited that Councilwoman Devine had the vision to pull together this group of dynamic women to talk about not where Columbia is in 2017, but where we want to be 20 years from now. How we cast that beautiful and bold vision about where Columbia needs to be and how we can be a competitive city of the 21st century. When Senator John Lewis Gervais offered the name of Columbia as the city's name in March of 1786, he said he hoped that the oppressed of all lands might find refuge under the wings of Columbia. And it's amazing how we've been able to use that term and that phrase in the 21st century to cast ourselves as a welcoming city to the most dynamic and talented people from 200 countries across the world, speak 90 different languages. But at that time, we were certainly not talking about a welcoming city and a welcoming state and a welcoming country, and certainly an imperfect nation that has grown over the last 250 years into the most dynamic democratic nation in the history of the world. How is it we can spend the next 20 years focusing on the principles of this incredible vision statement to make sure that all of God's children, that all of our talent, male and female, black, white, Latino, Christians, Jews, Muslims, gay, straight, old, young, people who've been here for generations, and some who just got here in the past few weeks, have a chance to participate in this wonderful and incredible American experiment. You can only do that, I will tell you, by choice. You can't do it by chance. You have to cast a bold vision about where you want to go. Then you have to marshal all your incredible talent and determine how we're going to make that vision a reality. So I will tell you, this is probably the most important thing that we can do as we cast a vision. I'm so thankful of the process that we participated in, and our city manager led with some incredible consultants that helped us as a council develop this vision statement along with our staff and everyone else at the city. But if this is going to be real and if it's going to be activated, it's going to take each and every one of you to make it a reality. So I'm thankful that you all have taken some time from your very busy days as entrepreneurs and social scientists and philanthropists and mothers and daughters and business leaders and all the things that you do every single day. And just want to say thank you for taking some time to help make this city what we know it can be. It can be the most talented, educated, and entrepreneurial city in America if we choose that we want to make it happen. So God bless you. Thank you. Tamika, thank you for your leadership. I'm going to leave now, all right? I've been kicked out of a lot of places before, and I won't fuss about having to leave here, but God bless y'all. Thank you. All right? See you, baby. All right?
And see, he's joking because I really was very nice. But thank you all so much. Thank you, Mayor Benjamin, so much for that welcome. If we can give him another round of applause. And continue to wish him well as he goes out and continues to represent our city in other places.
Thank you all for being here this morning, ladies. I'm City Manager Teresa Wilson, and good morning. Good morning. Well, you know, Ms. Devine, as usual, has gotten behind us on something that, I'll be honest, was a bit challenging a couple of years back. To this day, to see some of the end results of the visioning process they went through is really humbling for me as manager, because as I said, as you can imagine, the mayor and council all have lots of priorities and goals, and to get them to come together collectively and to really put the time in, and they did that. I mean, thoughtful, hard work. It was hard work to get them to, over time, several sessions, come up with these 7 focus areas and these goals. But they did it, and this has created for us a roadmap, even for staff, to be able to budget, to plan projects, everything around the things they've said that they want to aspire to do for our community for the next 20 years. So it's pretty neat. I've heard these statements. I've seen the video production happening in City Hall firsthand, and I've seen them on camera speaking these things into reality. But we need you all to embrace it and really understand it. And what I love about Ms. Devine is she is all about taking it to the community. And of course, we're going to start with the ladies first, because the ladies make it happen. And we want you all to understand this vision. We want to thank her for her leadership and always kind of being my partner in crime and twisting some arms at times with our gentlemen on council to help them know, yeah, you can be on a music video at City Hall. It's okay. We're going to get the word out. And they love it, and I'm proud of all of them for doing what they've done thus far. So Ms. Devine, as you know, has always, for a long time as our at-large council member, taken on the hard issues, the issues that affect our families, that affect our children, that affect our health. And so many of the parts and pieces of our visioning process, the focus areas, the goals, affect those same areas that are passionate for her and passionate, you know, in her heart. So we want to welcome her wholeheartedly this morning as she embraces this vision and gives us a wonderful keynote about moving Columbia forward for the next 20 years. Thank you, Ms. Devine.
And when she says partner in crime, she really means that. I will tell you that, you know, I mentioned Steve being a friend. Teresa is a good friend as well. We've known each other since law school days, and really having somebody who brings that professional. I have the ideas, and, you know, sometimes they're really, really big, and someone has to kind of pull me down and say, okay, this is what's realistic right this second. Doesn't mean we can't get to it, but this is what's realistic right this second, and this is how we get to the big idea. And so she is that for me, a lot of my groundedness. So I thank her for her leadership at the city, and so proud of her. I think a lot of people don't recognize what all it takes to be a city manager, especially for the capital city of the state of South Carolina. But she has done a phenomenal job, and I thank her so much. So we have dubbed this as a keynote. And I don't know exactly if this is going to be your expectation of a keynote. I shared with some ladies during the coffee and conversation portion is that since it was dubbed as a keynote, I felt like I had to write a speech, which I don't really do most of the time. I do a lot of public speaking, and usually I just speak from the heart, especially when it's issues that I'm passionate about. But my goal was to actually write a speech because I wanted to hit several points. But I took my oldest to camp yesterday out of town, and as I was driving back and I got home, and most of you know I have a 5-month-old, so last night the 5-month-old wasn't feeling mommy sitting at a computer doing a speech. And so I said, that's fine, because as always, when I'm passionate about something, I just speak from the heart, and I just ask the Lord to just be with me and say what I need to say to you all. So I'm going to do that. And so I will say, before I get started in kind of the meat of it, I did want to, again, thank you all for being here, but also to kind of tell you about how this came about and how we thought about doing this. I will say that we've got a great city staff, our PR staff particularly, but as we talked about the envisioning process and talked about bringing this to the citizens, I really did want to start with the ladies. And as we talked about the format for today, I wanted us to have an opportunity not just to leave here with information about what the vision is, but I want everyone in here to see how that vision relates to your lives and how you can be part of that vision. And so for those of you who were here for coffee and conversation, you had an opportunity to talk with our subject matter experts. We will have a networking break, and so I'm encouraging you to talk with them again, but I do want to introduce those dynamic ladies so that you know who is here and who's in the room, and if you didn't have an opportunity to speak with them during coffee and conversation, that you do that during the break. So I'm going to break it down into our focus areas. And I mentioned again, in your bags, you have that vision statement, and you have our focus areas, and you have our goals. So as you leave here today, you'll be able to take that with you and take it out into the community. But our first focus area is attracting and retaining talent. And so our subject matter expert for that is Ms. Cara Simmons. Cara, if you stand up, please. Thank you. Cara is the chair of the Talented 10th, and she can talk to you more about Talented 10th, but that is a way to engage primarily our African-American millennials in our city and getting them connected in various ways. But Cara can talk to you about the Talented 10th and just other ways. We've got, locally, we have CORE, we have the Young Professionals with Historic Columbia and the Palladian Society. We have lots of opportunities to connect and retain our talent. And when I say connecting and attracting and retaining talent, I don't mean just for our city staff, but I mean for your businesses and for our children. If those of you who remember years ago, and sometimes to a certain extent now, but years ago, we had a lot of young people who were graduating and they choose to go somewhere else because they feel like Columbia doesn't have opportunities. Well, we want to make sure that we're attracting and retaining talent, and so Cara can talk to you about what she and her peers are doing for that, and then how you can be a part of that. Then we have our planning together, and Irene Tyson is our subject matter expert on that. And this is Irene. Irene is a principal with the Boudreaux Group, and she is the director of planning. She also was co-chair of Midland's Reality Check, which was an opportunity to hear from the community about the vision of Columbia and how what they would like to see. And so Irene brings a wealth of knowledge. She's an architect, but she also is director of planning. So she brings together how we need to build infrastructure. And we talked about this a little bit during coffee and conversation. A lot of people talk about, well, I want to see this. And they don't understand, well, yeah, you might want to see that, but what does it take to get there? What planning is necessary? What infrastructure, connecting the roads and making sure that the roads are built. Those of you who live in Northeast Columbia know that when you don't plan accordingly, sometimes you have everything converging at one time. And so, Irene can talk about that and how the role that she's played, particularly with us in the city and some of the planning that we're doing. Then we've got Natalie Britt. Natalie can talk to us about lots of things, but I have her as a subject matter expert on connecting our community. Natalie is executive director of the Palmetto Conservation Foundation, which particularly in her role there, she talks about, she helps planning greenways, and she also is the founding chair, actually, of the city's BPAC committee, Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I always have to think what that means. BPAC, but Natalie is instrumental in getting our city focused on being more walkable and bikeable. And I'll tell you that you've seen a lot with us making sure that we have the infrastructure necessary for people to get out of their cars and walk and bike places. And so Natalie has a lot of expertise, not just here in the city, but the city she's passionate about because she lives here, but she has worked throughout the state. So a lot of people will hear about the Palmetto Trail, and I hear a lot of folks talk about the trails on the river in Greenville and other places, and Natalie has been instrumental in a lot of that planning and funding. So she is a great person to talk about how do we connect our community and what does that mean? Because there's been a lot of conversation, you might have even seen on the news where people were talking about the greenways we're doing here locally, and some people in one area had concerns about the greenway and where it was going to go and how it was going to impact their community. But we have to look at the whole community and understanding the benefits of rails to trails and understanding having walk paths and bike paths is instrumental in growing our city. So you can talk to Natalie about that. We also have Gloria Saeed. Gloria is the Director of Community Development for the city, and she is she's talking about empowering residents. And I'll say a lot of staff, probably Gloria and Dana are probably the ones that I probably hit the most. But I will say, as I talk to you about, I have big ideas, and sometimes people have to kind of bring me down on how we're going to get it done. I'll say that Gloria is one of those staff people that probably hates to see an email come across that says Tamika Isaac Devine. But empowering residents I'm very passionate about that. And so with community development, Gloria can talk to you about what we do as far as home ownership loans. She can talk to you about the support that we give neighborhood associations and communities. And then, we're doing a lot with financial empowerment and education for our citizens. And making sure that people have the tools necessary to be empowered. And so Gloria can give you a lot, and I'll say Gloria has with her Tracy Brown. Tracy, if you would stand so everybody can see you. And Felicia Wilkes. Felicia, if you would stand. So we needed 3 people to talk about that, guys, because there's a lot under empowering our residents. So if you have ideas or you have concerns or questions about, what does empowering residents mean and how do we get empowered and how do we help our neighborhoods be empowered, those are some women that you can talk with. We also have, for economic prosperity, endless possibilities, we have Tina Herbert from the city's Office of Business Opportunities. And Tina is our director of OBO, and so there, for those of you who are small business owners, and I know there are a lot in this room, she is the person to talk to about what resources the city has available for your small business, whether it is facade loans or loans to start your business. There are a lot of opportunities, so she can talk to you about that. And then her partner in crime today is Ms. Sabrina Odom. Sabrina, if you would stand. Sabrina is Executive Director of the North Columbia Business Association, which is one of our business associations in the city of Columbia. She represents a variety of businesses in the North Columbia area, and she helps recruit businesses to North Columbia. And those of you who go particularly down North Main Street will see how there are so many businesses that are coming to that corridor. The North Columbia area from Elmwood to River Drive in particular has seen a growth in a lot of businesses. Just yesterday, there was a ribbon cutting on a new business in the or North Main Plaza. And so Sabrina can talk to you from the business owner's perspective about business associations, the benefits of having them, how do you form it, and then how do they advocate for resources necessary for businesses. So those are the two people to talk about economic prosperity and endless possibilities. We also have Ms. Christy Savage, who is president of the Eau Claire Community Council. Christy, right here. And Christy, I have her here to talk about enhancing Columbia's neighborhoods. And I'll say it's not listed, but I also have, and she's not seated at our reserve, but I have Alex Burgess. Where is she? Miss Burgess? Oh, right here. Say stand up, please. Miss Burgess. Because these two ladies, she's actually vice president of the CICC, which is also an umbrella of neighborhood associations. But either one of these ladies particularly can talk about enhancing Columbia's neighborhoods. And I'll tell you, from the neighborhoods perspective, it is so important to have strong neighborhoods, and a lot of people talk about how the strength of Columbia's neighborhoods. We have great neighborhoods, we have very strong neighborhoods, but I think particularly these two ladies, but a lot of people will tell you that people don't get involved in their neighborhood associations for various reasons. You know, we might be working, we might have family stuff, some other things going on, and you don't get involved in neighborhood associations, but that is really where you find out what's going on in your community. You can form alliances, look into resources, but they can talk to you about enhancing Columbia's neighborhoods. We go to neighborhood associations all the time and neighborhood meetings, and people will say, well, I want this in my neighborhood, or I want that. And you have to kind of understand how can you effectively advocate for the building of your neighborhood, but how you as neighbors and people who live in residents in the area can really be a part of the solution. So these two ladies are fabulous. They are great at effectively advocating. Is that a nice way of saying it, ladies? They are great at effectively advocating for what's right and what the needs are. And so a lot of people don't understand how to do that. So those are great resources for you. And then also for our focus area number 7, leading the way in innovative and high quality municipal services. I've got Erica Moore. Erica, he's had Stan. Erica is our city clerk, and she's so much more. She is really a great resource. If people who want to come and talk to city council, that you go through Erica. But Erica is always looking at ways for us to be more in tune with the community. You see now that we have a system where city council has an agenda where you can find things in city council agenda, all the kind of back office stuff that you see happening at City Hall. Erica is on top of that, and so she is a good person to talk to about what the city is doing to make sure that we're getting where we need to be for 2036, how we are implementing technology and other things to connect our citizens with us. And then Missy Kaufman, let me see if you have a stand. Missy is our Director of Budget and Program Management. And so, again, she budget and program management. She is the person who's going to keep us on target to make sure that we are investing where we need to and in implementing these services. So whether it is new technology or apps or social media and other things, she helps us manage the programming and the budget. And then I don't have her listed as well, but I want to point her out. Where is Dana? Dana, where'd she go? Is she in here? She had to go? Okay. So earlier here, I had Dana Higgins, and so I do want to point her out because Dana is also our director, or she's our city engineer, and she is one that really helps us understand long-term. And she and I were talking outside, and hopefully those of you who were able to go by there talk to her as well, because Dana is good at understanding the engineering part. How do we get to where we need to be? The last couple of days, we've had huge flood events in the city. I mean, y'all seen that? And so you know that as a city, we have to be planning for that. And so a lot of times people say, well, what are y'all going to do about flooding? And it's all over the news. Oh, 5 points flooded, or this place flooded. Well, there's a lot going into why places flood and what we have to do as far as infrastructure to be able to be prepared for weather events like that. And so Dana is a good person that talks about our capital improvements plan and moving forward. So although she had to leave, hopefully you got a chance to meet her, but I do want to point out that she's a resource as well. So anyway, if y'all would still give a hand to all of our subject matter experts. And I want to encourage you guys to really network with them or engage with them at the networking hour as well. So now let me get into the meat of what I wanted to talk about today. And before I get into that, I will say one other thing. I want to caveat is that a lot of times when you're at a conference or you're at a speaking engagement, most people think it is rude to be texting or on their phones. And I'm going to tell you that this is the one place that is not rude, and you are invited to do that. I encourage you, the way we get the word out, we are trying to embrace every opportunity for us to connect and engage everybody. Not everybody could be here this morning, so we are streaming live right now. Hello, everybody who is watching us live. And we are also utilizing social media. So those of you who are on social media, if you want to tweet, Snapchat, Facebook, whatever, please do that. We are utilizing 3 hashtags. We've got hashtag Envision Columbia, hashtag Women's Summit, and hashtag Our Future, Our Voice. Our Future, Our Voice. So those are the 3 hashtags that we just ask that you use so that we can stay connected on the conversation. And you can tweet and post even after today using those hashtags. So with that said, I wanted to really start off, those of you who, well, not those of you, all of you saw it. Those of you who saw the vision, the video or reading it, I know that sometimes you're looking at that and reading it, and you're seeing some of the statements that we've made, some of the very bold statements that the mayor mentioned that we've made in the vision statement. And some of you might be thinking, is that really Columbia? Is that right? And so I want to share with you that what we did, and the city manager talked about the process, we really went through a huge process on how do we get there. But our vision statement isn't where we currently are, but is where we want to be. It is where we see ourselves in 2036. And so as I thought about kind of how I was going to start off the talk, I went to, back in the day when we were younger, we would go to Webster's Dictionary or maybe an encyclopedia. And now, with everything changing, now we go to Wikipedia. So I went to Wikipedia, and I wanted to say, what does Wikipedia, how does it define vision statement? And so it defines a vision statement as a vision statement is a company's, in this place we're going to say government, a government's roadmap indicating both what the government wants to become and the guiding transformational initiatives by setting a defined direction for that government's growth. And so that is what our vision statement is. It is a roadmap as to where we want to go. We recognize that everything that we stated in the vision and in the priorities isn't where we are currently in 2017, but is where we're going and is where we're going to be by 2036. And so we really had to look at where we wanted to be so that we can backtrack from that vision and see what do we need to be implementing in 2017 in order to get us there for 2036 or before. And so it was a very involved process, and I'll share with you, it was interesting because we went through a year process, and I commend the city manager because I've been on council for several years, and we have never been through that kind of process before. We've had retreats, we've had planning sessions, we've even adopted things that we kind of called a strategic plan, but weren't really a strategic plan. But this time, we really went through a strategic planning session. As she mentioned, we've got lots of strong personalities with lots of priorities, and we had to put all those things on the table, and we had to backtrack and figure out what we could conceivably see ourselves, even when we're no longer in these positions. A vision that will transform not just the city of Columbia, but the Midlands, and a city, and have a vision for a city that we want people to really embrace and love and feel like they're going to be part of. And so part of that was several retreat planning sessions, full day sessions, 2 and 3 day sessions to really kind of put out there where we wanted to be. And so from that came the 7 priorities that you all have in the vision statement, as well as the 5 goals that were going to help get us there. And so one of the things that we did talk about when we did the vision statement is, okay, now that we have a vision, we don't want to say we have a vision statement that the council did, but people don't really feel part of it. They don't buy into it. They don't think that this is reality. So one of the things that we committed ourselves to during our visioning process is to make sure that we were taking this vision to the people, to you all. And so people ask, well, why this summit? Well, this is one of those opportunities to bring it to the people. And of course, I'm biased. I thought, as the city manager said, let's start with the women. We know that we are the people who get things done. We know that we really push things, and sometimes, even if it's our idea, we allow somebody else to think it's their idea to just get it done. And so I thought, okay, let's start with the women, because these are going to be the change agents in the city. These are going to be the people who actually make this vision a reality. And so I have the assistance of our fabulous PR staff and other city staff, particularly Miss Leisha Utzi, who she probably went outside because she's always working. But Leisha has worked with me long enough that she kind of knows me and knows where my passion is. And so she and I kind of bounce ideas off of each other. And we said, well, why don't we have a women's summit? So that's why we decided to have this. And so when I started going out and telling people we're doing a women's summit, I got, well, what about the men? You know, y'all probably had people say that to you when you said you're going to a women's summit. They're like, well, what about men? Men are going to be part of the city's vision. Why can't men come? And so my response to folks were, it doesn't mean that, nothing against the men, but quite honestly, in real talk, we know, again, women are usually the workers. But honestly, a lot of times we are not the decision makers at the table. Although we may influence the decision to a certain extent, we're not the decision makers at the table. And I hope that that will change by 2036. And I won't say hope that it changes. It will be changed by 2036. But in order for us to do that, we've got to start now. And so part of my goal for this was not just to bring the vision to you ladies, but also for you to really see yourselves as part of this vision, and then also leave here, and I'll talk more about it when I give the call to action, but really leave here with, okay, so now what? Where do we go from here? What can I personally do? Instead of saying, well, what is the city going to do? Or what is my neighborhood association going to do? Or what is my employer going to do? We need to look internally at ourselves and start with what we can do to actually make it happen. And so I kind of had to think about me personally and from my standpoint. How many of you ladies in here at the beginning of the year start off the year with vision boards? I see Dion, I know you do. Okay. Yeah, so and those of you who might not have done a vision board, that's a very empowering process. Vision boarding, for those of you who might not be familiar with it, is you start off, and it doesn't have to be start off the year. Anytime you decide to really put your vision, your personal vision down, and you start off with thinking of phrases or words or pictures that really take you to your desired state. And so you heard the city manager mention desired state. So with our priorities, we had to look at what our desired state was, and that's where we came up with those 7 priorities and the desired state, where we want to see the city in 2036. And so backtracking from that, and I had to think about, okay, from that standpoint, what can I do personally? And so that's where we really want to challenge ourselves from here. Women make up approximately 50% of the population of the city. But statistics show, and I don't have all the statistics, I don't want to bore y'all with statistics, but statistics show that although we make about 50% of the population, we are severely underrepresented in heads of companies, in elected office, certainly, and typically in boards and commissions. And so the question really is, if we're really going to be a part of the vision for Columbia and implementing this vision, we have to not only have a seat at the table, and you hear people talk about having a seat at the table, but we have to have a seat at the table, but we also have to be part of the conversation. Sometimes we have the seat at the table, but because we're still in the minority position at that seat or at that table, our voices aren't elevated to the level where they need to be. And so I wanted us as women to kind of think about how they can be elevated to the extent they need to be and how we can really be part of making this vision a reality. And so I had to think about the roles that we play in our community. Okay, we're wives, we're mothers, we're sisters, we are daughters, we're teachers, we're business owners, we're heads of our community associations. I mean, there is no reason with all of those influential positions that we should not only have a seat at the table, that not only have our voices heard, but quite honestly, that we shouldn't be running things. Y'all agree with that? So I know I'm gonna get some people on live stream say, okay, she's male bashing now and all that kind of stuff. I love men. I love my husband, but he also knows that, in order for our daughters to be successful and for Columbia to be a place that they see themselves wanting to remain, that they have to see people who look like them in places of influence and affecting change. And so with that, I had to really think about the priorities and then how do I want you ladies to be part of implementing the change in Columbia. So the 7 priorities, and you'll see, and Erica has talked about this a lot, when you see the city of Columbia spending money, you will see how the money that we spend align with our priorities. But the city doesn't have an endless pot of money. We could spend money 10 times over and still not affect the real change that we need to see in the city. And so I had to think about how are we going to get there? And how do we do that is that we look to partners. And you'll hear from several of our partners on the panel in a few minutes, but we need to look to our partners, and we have to look to other people to partner with to get things done in the city. And so there are just 3 things that I wanted to share with you as part of my talk, and then we'll take the break and then come back to our fabulous panel that I'm so excited the ladies that we have represented. But I was sharing with Leisha earlier, I laughed, I said, you all know I go to a Baptist church, so I got 3 points. 3 points, and then I'm gone, okay? So our first point, I want you ladies to be engaged. Okay? Be engaged. Be engaged does not mean just voting. How many people see around election time, everybody's coming and asking for your vote, and you might get out and you might vote for a campaign or a candidate. You might get out there and do voter registration things, and then once someone is elected, you don't keep them accountable. You don't call them. You don't ask them what they're doing. You don't look at what the city is doing. You don't look at, or I think people look at what we're doing. I think they don't look at what the county does. But anyway, or you don't look at what the county does or what the state does or what Congress does. And so you've got to look at and be engaged. So I want you to be engaged, not just voting, not just talking to your elected officials, but being involved in your neighborhood associations, going to your PTO meetings and not just talking about what's happening with your child, but what's happening with the school and the school system and the district, and getting engaged by volunteering, mentoring. There are lots of ways that you can be engaged. And so I want to encourage you all to look at ways to be engaged. And I mentioned mentoring and things. I told her, I said, I'm gonna single you out, so be prepared. I don't want to embarrass you. But I did want to let y'all know, like, I have a young lady. Okay, Imani, stand up, please. This is Imani Belton. And Imani is, yay, we're gonna clap for Imani. But Imani is a college graduate, and she's taking a gap year. And so Imani, and I know her mom, actually, I knew her mom when her mom was pregnant with her, so that's how long I've known her mom. But I talked to her mom, said, well, she's taking a gap year, and she's very engaged. Yeah, you can sit down, sweetie. She's very interested in policy and how policy is made. She has a psychology degree, and she wanted to just learn. And so she called me when she graduated and said, can I intern with you? Can I shadow you during my gap year? And so I jumped at the opportunity. But for me, it's not really, it's helping her, but it's not about helping her, but it's about letting her see where she can be a part of the Columbia community. This talented young lady can go anywhere in this country, in this world. Where'd you just come from? China? South Africa. I mean, so this young lady, this young lady has endless possibilities all over this country. But we want to make sure she has endless possibilities here in Columbia. And so I challenge all of us to be engaged that way. Figure out ways that we can bring other young ladies along. How do we engage them in the community? How do we stay engaged with them and what they're doing? And so that is my point number 1, is be engaged. Okay, point number 2, it is incumbent upon us to network. How many of you all met someone here today that you did not know? Wonderful. Okay, so networking is so very important, and I talk to folks about this all the time because a lot of people look at networking as a shallow activity where you exchange cards with somebody and then you go on your way and you don't ever talk to them or see them or even remember their name again. But that is not networking. That's not real networking. That is a shallow social activity. Networking is actually meeting folks outside of where you normally would, outside of your job, outside of the folks that you normally see at church, or not outside of where you see at the PTO meeting. Networking at an opportunity like this, and then in keeping in contact with that person, because as you know, and I love this quote or this saying, it says, your net worth is determined by your network. Y'all heard that? And then I always tell people always think when they hear net worth and they think monetarily. But I look at net worth as the value that you get out of an experience. And so looking at the value that you can get out of being engaged in the Columbia community is going to be determined by your network. The more people network with other folks outside of their comfort zone, the more they know other people, they will be engaged not just in what's happening now, but in the future. If you are networking with someone, and I'll just point out some folks. So say you've got Ms. McConnell here, who is the youth director at Transitions, so she works with our homeless youth. Okay, so if you got Ms. McConnell, and at this event, she is networking, and she meets Ms. August, who is the director of the Comment. The two of them can talk about how they can help each other, not just business-wise, but then how do they work to better the Columbia community and engage folks in making Columbia's vision a reality. And so, I want to challenge you all to think about networking in that deeper meaning, and network here. And not just network and get cards and get names and then leave here and don't follow up with people, but follow up with them afterwards. Stay connected with them and stay engaged with them and see how you all can work together to help make Columbia's vision a reality. And so then third, last but not least, I need you ladies to stay connected. Not just stay connected to each other, but stay connected to the city and stay connected to the city's vision. You know, the great part about our vision is, although we've actually put it down, it's going to evolve. As we check off goals out of the 5 goals, we're going to add new goals. The new goals that get added could be framed by your involvement, your connection with us, your ideas, your pushing things forward. Also, stay connected as far as your ideas of how we can move things forward. So I have people all the time will reach out to me and say, well, I have an idea about X, Y, and Z. And they don't know the first idea or first step on how to get that done. And Joanna and I talked about that, and she'll talk about that on the panel. But the question is then, so how do you stay connected with that idea? How do you get that idea moving forward so that you can be a partner with the city? When you talk about empowering residents, the city can't do it all. But if you have a program if you have a nonprofit, if you have a business that has community service that you want to do, how can you help connect with that idea, that priority of the city to empower residents? And you can do something that the city can't do or is unable to do right now. And so as I get ready to conclude, and I don't know where I am on time, but that's the good part about being the host. I can manage the time. But as I conclude, I just want you to think about, this is a bigger picture. Being here this morning is just the beginning. It is an opportunity for us to know that we are Columbia. And you've heard that, and we've got the little hashtag out there, we are Columbia. We are Columbia. Columbia is not about your elected leaders. They're not about city staff. It's not about the people who you perceive as being important. Columbia is about all of us. It is about those of us who live here, those of us who work here, those of us who are raising our families here. We are Columbia. And so there is not any one person that is responsible for our vision. We all have to be part of that vision. We all have to play a role. We all have to do our part to making this vision a reality. And one of the things I tell people a lot, those of you who follow me on social media know with all the many hats that I wear, one of the newer things that I do is I have another business that I started, the Possibilities Institute, where it's my public speaking and coaching and consulting firm. But when I was doing my vision for Possibilities Institute, and I had to come up with it, and my vision statement for the Possibilities Institute is I work with women leaders and moms, and I help them discover their leadership possibility, maximize their potential, and live a life that leaves a legacy. And the reason I added that live a life that leaves a legacy is I always ask myself, and people ask me, why do you do all that you do? People tell me they get tired just watching me. Well, imagine how I feel. But I love the things that I do, and I keep pushing. But the biggest thing, my why is, what is the legacy? I don't want people to look at a legacy as in, the titles that someone may hold or the awards they received or even some of the accomplishments that people note about them. The legacy is what people say about you when you're not in the room and the impact that you have on other people's lives. And so when I think about the legacy that we all collectively, again, we are Columbia, the legacy that we all need to have is, what is the impact that we're making on the city so that as we are no longer here, that our children and our grandchildren and those kids that are coming to USC and Columbia College and Benedict and Allen and Midlands Tech and CIU, that they see Columbia as that city that they want to be in, that they want to grow in, that they want to build their businesses in. And so as we leave here, I want to challenge you to think about, how are you leaving a legacy? What legacy are you leaving for the city of Columbia, and what does that mean as far as your role in helping us implement this vision?